Hello everyone. This video will be focused entirely on Venus retrograde. This is the chart for Venus stationing retrograde. Here it's July 22nd in California. Before we start, I want to make a few points. I'm making this video probably just within the hour of the nodes moving into the Aries Libra axis. So this is significant because planetary functions, the meaning of the planets archetypally remain the same. How they're interrelating and their relative function, how they are participating within the evolutionary process at any particular time, it's incredibly fluid and dynamic, and it changes all the time. Venus is the ruler of Libra, so Venus is now the ruler of the South Node in Libra. This gives a very specific added dimension to Venus. So we're not just looking at a Venus retrograde journey and then all the aspects to Venus, which is another dimension. We're looking at a very particular reality to this Venus, which is it's the ruler of the South Node. So I want to start by really giving attention to that, what it means, and then how do we understand that in context in light of the current Venus retrograde cycle. The ruler, let's start here. The South Node in transit corresponds to dynamics of the past that are coming to a head now. Right? So these can be seeds that have been planted that are coming to fruition, or dynamics that are emerging within the algorithm of life that seems linear but actually sort of cyclical, that are re-emerging into our field of experience to be resolved. Right? Something that wants to be integrated. And that's what the South Node is. We don't want to get stuck there. We want to really meet whatever's coming forward and integrate it one way or another. The ruler of the South Node is going to qualify and condition, provide more context for these past dynamics currently coming to a head. So when we're looking at Libra, which is inherently relational, we're always going to be drawing upon Venus. In our own natal chart, you will look at your own natal Venus to understand the specific dynamics coming to a head. You can provide more perspective as well by looking at the transiting Venus, but this is a question I get all the time, so let me just really clarify this one. Transiting South Node in Libra, wherever it is, whatever house it's moving through, these are the general areas of your life where these dynamics are coming forward. The ruler of wherever Libra is in your chart, so wherever Venus is in your chart, are going to speak to the actual, more specific dynamics that will color and condition exactly what's emerging at this time. So you do want to look at your natal Venus, okay? I have natal Venus in Libra, okay? In fact, the South Node is going to move over my personal Venus. That's a very, very Libra. If you have Venus in Aries or you have Venus in Capricorn, you would look there. That's a very essential part of working with the transiting nodes. But you look at the transiting nodal ruler as well, and that's going to add more dimension, provide more context for the nature of this transiting planet. So it's just adding another necessary layer. We can always apply rulership in both directions. This Venus retrograde as a ruler of the South Node speaks both to the collective dynamics unfolding and applying this Venus retrograde in our own natal charts, specifically, individually, personally, how are we working with this Libra energy? Okay. So what we're going to be focusing on right now is generally the meaning of this Venus retrograde in light of its rulership to the South Node. That's where we're going to start. Apply it. Where is Venus retrograde in your chart? What houses is it moving through? What houses is the South Node moving through? And then understand all of this in context with your own natal Venus as well. Okay. So Venus moving retrograde as the ruler of the South Node just by itself says there's a deep internal draw and focus towards re-evaluating our relationships, our agreements, our expectations, our projections, what we're needing from one another. Every relationship is defined by a particular purpose and agreement. From a Libra Venusian point of view, it's always a matter of understanding what are the terms, what are we agreeing to, what's the nature of this particular relationship. And the healthiest expression is where each individual is consciously aligned to the purpose of the relationship, and these choices are being made together. Right? Certain relationships will have nuance, like parent-child, etc. But let's say it's a romantic relationship or a boss employer employee relationship, or you're hiring someone to clean your carpet. In all cases, there's a shared agreement, and that allows for a clean exchange of energy. Energy is exchanged. Each person is showing up in their full agency, in full agreement with what the relationship itself is intended for. When we have unrealized entanglement, enmeshment, people-pleasing expectations, holding patterns, I need you to be this so I can feel this way, I need to be this so that you can feel good, then we're looking at a particular resolution of these Venusian dynamics. And it points essentially to, relative to the Libra and Venus archetype, where relationships become a source of self-value and self-worth. I feel good about myself. My self-esteem is fed and nourished, nurtured by this relationship. And this is a core dynamic for all of us. This is why Venus also corresponds by itself to self-esteem, self-value, self-worth. Venus speaks to how are we going to source our own needs and determine our own value, what makes our life feel meaningful on our own, irregardless of other people. Just as much as it's also going to say, oh, I feel really good around this person, or here are my relationship needs. I feel really good in this relationship. Oh, and now these needs aren't being met. I feel really bad, or I want to be with someone else. These are ongoing dynamics that we meet. But it points us back to fundamentally, and this is the key with Venus, especially Venus retrograde, what is my relationship to feeling in the present moment? It's all about feeling. Venus is about the psychology of listening. So we extend that outward, we listen to other people, but we also extend that inward and we listen. Listen and feeling are the same thing. Listen implies a gesture of allowing, which is the same thing as feeling. To feel, we have to almost like create a space of receptivity to allow what is to be. The archetype of feeling itself is very beautiful and fascinating to think about, because it's a verb, and yet it's enacted by a sort of non-doing, by a state of allowing. So it's almost paradoxical in its nature. And this is Venus. Venus is the heart chakra. Venus is balance. Venus is this place where we allow everything to come into its own beingness. We don't force things with Venus. We don't make demands or commands. Maybe we do, but really that's ultimately not how things come into their greater harmony. It's active. I mean, Libra itself is a yang archetype. All polarities share the same chart. So Libra Aries is actually incredibly yang, right? It's very active. It's very engaging. It's very, I want to explore, really, I want to go out. I want to experience new people. I'm learning about myself. I'm engaging. It's a very engaging kind of process. But the Venusian work of feeling and listening, it's sort of a balance of yin and yang, right? Because you're engaging attention and presence. So attention is going out towards something, but it's also relaxed at the same time. So I'm giving so much attention to this idea of feeling because this is what's so important with Venus. And with Venus retrograde, we're really brought back within. What is our capacity to feel and listen to what's inside? Because of the need for security, the tendency is to feel a little bit, listen a little bit, and then to move towards solution. This is uncomfortable. I don't want to be around that person. Or this is uncomfortable. Let me, go for that physical object or experience that will make me feel better. Right? The most gross level of consciousness within the Venusian archetype is just running away from discomfort and running towards pleasure. And it seems like in that kind of state where we're nurturing the sensual, good feeling experience of being alive. It's a very survival orientation. But really, we're taking ourselves further from life. We're not allowing ourselves to deepen in our own self-intimacy, to deepen in our own self-knowledge. We're just not wanting to feel complexity. And complexity is the name of the game here. And yet, being Venus, it's harmony, it's beauty at the same time. So with Venus moving retrograde as a ruler of the South Node, it basically says, what is our threshold for feeling? Can I be with this too? Can I allow even this too? What is the threshold at which point we say, Nope, can't allow this. I can't be with this. As we push the edge of that threshold, we live more gracefully, meaning we actually strengthen our own self-value. Because what we teach ourselves is, I can live here now. Oh, that's uncomfortable. I can still love myself. I can still be here now. I can still care for and tend to the beauty of my life. I want to retreat. I want to defend. I want to push away. I want to fawn. I want to give into anything that will keep me from this discomfort. And yet I'm going to just be here now a little more. And this strengthens us. This deepens our own internal sense of value and worth. We learn this and we give it to ourselves by pushing that edge of discomfort and finding more grace. This is what life is. This is what poetry is. This is what art is. All creativity really comes from that place. This might reshape, Libra, many of our relationships. This might say, okay, there's a direction that we're going here, which is not the direction I wanted to go. It might say, when I'm just honoring my feeling body and I'm not willing to be inauthentic. I'm not willing to be inauthentic in my relating, in my giving, in my touching, in my sharing, in my agreeing. I only want to step forward in a way where choices mutually are in total agency, total shared willingness. And it really brings up the question, what happens in our relationships, all relationships, when we invite a greater level of self-permission and authenticity to just feel what's there and not bypass it? This is such an essential dynamic. And with Pluto squaring the nodes, it deeply emphasizes this. Right? What are the conditionings, the restrictive frameworks that we've so deeply internalized that says, I'm not allowed to thrive and be who I am beyond this particular threshold? Oh, that's too taboo, that's not allowed. These desires, these needs, these wants, these preferences, these feelings. So often we just need to be able to start with allowing ourselves to feel what we feel and not know what to do about that first. Okay, so that's how I look at this Venus stationing retrograde and this Venus retrograde journey as ruler of the Libra South Node. And that's not even getting to where Venus is and the aspect. This is a very broad framework for understanding this. So let's tune into the specific dimensions of this Venus. It's in Leo. Leo is all about creativity and the self-agency, the self-entitlement to engage with life on a creative level. All children have this, right? Every child naturally is a creative being. There's no non-creative children. We have the sticks and the stones and the toys. Everything is an expression of finding out what is it like to be me. So within Leo, every single soul is a unique expression of divine intelligence, and it's upon each one of us to love that, to claim that. The healthy claiming of this is this sense of, I'm alive. What is it like to be here, to engage fully, consciously, creatively in life? And so with that confidence, there's a sense of excitement about life, excitement about what one wants to do. Venus retrograde in Leo is really giving attention to awakening the heart of the artist. It's awakening this joy and beauty and this relishment and delight in creating, in living a creative and exciting and meaningful and engaging life. Thus, it really gives attention to where might we be struggling in our own self-esteem and self-value and self-trust. Can we develop more dignity, holding ourselves with greater esteem? Relative to the Libra dynamics, especially with the Pluto involved, we can really bring up these questions. What existing agreements or entanglements or psychological relationship patterns keep us smaller than we actually are? We want to embrace the truth of our greatness, the truth of our magnanimity. This is not from an egoic, look at me, I'm great, or these are the special things about me. This is more so about who we are is great. Our value is great, and value is inestimable. And when we're alive with that, we will never compromise our own dignity. And that's one of the healthy aspects of Venus in Leo. The quality of self-value, self-worth, self-esteem, self-respect is so deep. I'm not going to do something that is contrary to my own dignity. I'm going to really honor that. So if we find ourselves coming from a place where we are lacking in that self-respect, this is a calling to really give attention to the healing of our own self-value. And we're going to find ourselves being met with various opportunities showing up in our life that are offering us the enhancement, the beautyment, the growth of all that is good and beautiful. But we have to believe in ourselves and be willing to speak our truth, be clear with our own value and what's right and what's deserving in order to embrace it. Otherwise, we keep ourselves small. Some of the hardest things around, and I find this for myself, cyclically doing the work that I do and growing my business and growing myself as an artist as well, the threshold that we have to cross to bring more of ourselves out are often these thresholds where we don't value the immensity of what's inside, and so we fall short of it. We don't put in the time and the effort. We don't establish the appropriate boundaries to really honor what we're doing and what we're creating, and the time, the space that we really need to access and bring forth our own creativity. If we're coming from a place where we maybe are more on the pushy, entitled end, then this Venus in Leo is saying, it's almost like dethroning the queen, dethroning the king. You can't get what you want. It's a going within and a letting go of whatever we were holding on to from a place of pride and insistence. The creative entitlement of Leo, Venus and Leo in particular, can lack a sort of awareness and attunement to, it's not just about getting my way, right? There are other people on the stage, there are other players. I have to harmonize with the way things are and not demand. So this might be a humbling to the ego. This might be very humbling to where our pride and value was associated with things going our way. And thus it's going to push us more deeply to uncover a greater dimension of our own being that we didn't even know exists. Perhaps more life, more joy, more lightness, more permission, more kindness, more gentleness, if we're holding on to conditions too strongly. The stationing of this Venus retrograde is with an inconjunct to Pluto, which is this whole week for the next 6, 7, 8 days, tightly squaring the nodes. So this is deconstructing everything. I mean, this is like one of the most powerful weeks of the year till the first few days of August, honestly. The next really powerful period will again happen during the next eclipse season, but this is like one of the hot spots, the strongest really, end of July, beginning of August. And this is one of the facets of it. Venus is staying within a very tight station to Pluto. Check this out, okay? So I'm going to animate the chart by several days so you can just see what's going on. Watch Venus and Pluto. As Pluto moves retrograde, it enters the 28th degree, right? So they both join the same degree while Venus is almost hardly moving at all. So just think about that. Pluto is the excavator. It destroys. It pushes evolutionary imperative. It says evolution has to happen. Face yourself. Face impermanence. Forms change. Everything changes. What's real doesn't change. That's the ongoing evolutionary journey. Venus just stopped, and it's like, if we want to think of it in a creative way, can't run fast enough, right? It's only picking up speed slowly, very slowly, and it's staying within a very tight inconjunct with Pluto for, several weeks really, moving before and after the retrograde. So it's just picking up. Pluto also is, by the way, picking up speed, mind you. It's at one of its fastest points. That opposition to the sun is one of the fastest periods of the retrograde cycle for planets outside of the Earth's orbit. And Venus is at one of its slowest points within its cycle, okay? So just think about what that means. Strong intensity with Pluto impacting, pushing upon a very slow, going even deeper Venus. This speaks so strongly to the need for adjustment. Now, this is a full phase inconjunct. The aspect from this Pluto to this Venus is 210 degrees. This is manifesting within a full phase. What this says is The environment is requiring adjustment. Relationships, which is what the full phase is all about, agreements, social dynamics, social constructs, all of these things may not be what we want them to be, or it might be pushing us to show up and meet the requirements in a new way. A new job offer is going to say you have to know yourself differently. You may not think you're fit for it, but if you take your old attitude into the new job, you're not going to succeed. You'll sabotage it. So this inconjunct is uncomfortable. I have to work on myself and adjust to this new social reality. Wear new clothing, cut my hair, really get to know myself, build my own value, my own presentation in a new way. If a relationship is going in a certain direction, we have to adjust to that and allow it to be. Then what are the new agreements? What are the new forms? What are the new constructs that are opening up right now? This is a big facet of that, but just apply this in any relational field and also in any creative field in regards to how we're actualizing ourselves. Venus in Leo is the heart of the artist, right? So this is ultimately about, we are bringing more of our own creative essence forward. That's a very strong, powerful beginning. So let's continue looking at this Venus movement. As Venus moves retrograde, it'll come into its second of 2 squares to Uranus. And as that happens, Venus is pretty much moving into the underworld. The underworld is where Venus joins the sun, and you can't see it. Right? Currently, Venus is outside now, a very bright, shining evening star. It's beautiful. As the sun comes closer to Venus towards what we call the inferior conjunction, this is where the phase reaches its midpoint. Right? So it squares Uranus, lots of change. This basically speaks to the objective reality of what's unfolding within the algorithm and adjusting our own sense of value and self-worth and self-esteem and attachments to that. This is a very heightened part of the Venus retrograde journey. And mind you, during this whole time, Pluto is still very tightly squaring the nodes of the moon. Very tightly. And we'll just take a look at the rest of it. See, Venus squares Jupiter towards the end of it. Jupiter begins to go retrograde. And then Venus goes direct at 12 degrees in early September. So that's a basic overview of what's going on with this Venus retrograde. So in closing, this Venus retrograde in Leo time, it's powerful. There's some deep soul dimensions. And I think for all of us, this is an opportunity to really explore the edge of greater self-love, greater self-value, to believe in ourselves more, and to just embrace the cycle, the unfolding of all things, challenging, not challenging, uncomfortable, pushing us into greatness, seemingly taking something from us. Everything, if we interpret it correctly, and if we meet it with self-respect, everything is going to be a way of only enhancing and exemplifying the fact of our beauty, the fact and the truth of our beautiful life and our worth and our value and our deserving. So things to think about, can we give ourselves more luxury, more time and space to just enjoy and relish in the state of being, enjoy the food, read that book you wanted to read, give more time to the creative projects or the relationships that you really value and enjoy. Little things like that resonate more with delight and enjoyment are so important because it ingrains within us a state of being that feels luxurious and abundant and joyful about our own life. Okay, thank you for watching, and blessings to us all on this Venus retrograde journey.